Have you ever wondered why some people learn anything so incredibly fast? Like that guy who picks up a guitar and in 6 months is already playing complex songs, while others take years to get past the basics. Or that girl who learns a new language in months, while most give up in the first year. We always think it's talent, right? Genetics, gift, luck. But it's not. In fact, there is a technique, a process that can accelerate your learning, allowing you to learn or master anything in record time. The samurai of feudal Japan had already decoded the accelerated learning process more than 400 years ago. The samurai didn't call it a productivity hack or a scientific method. They called it Shuhari, Shoshin, Mushin. 3 principles that transformed ordinary men into lethal masters, and that today, if you know how to apply them, can make you master any skill with frightening speed. And look, I'm not talking about motivation or self-help. I'm talking about a learning system so efficient that it was used by generations of warriors, Zen monks, and Japanese artisans, a system that modern neuroscience has already proven to actually work. That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. But before I show you how to apply these 3 principles in practice, comment below, what skill do you want to master in the next 6 months? Do you want to learn something new, change careers, or create something new? It can be anything. Also, consider liking the video and clicking the hype button.
This really helps the channel reach more people. Thank you so much to each and every one of you who continue to follow the channel and give me all this incredible support. Now, back to the video. Chapter 1. Shoshin, the Beginner's Mindset. Let's start with the most counterintuitive principle of all, Shoshin. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know I've already produced a video about Shoshin. But in this video, I'm going to combine all the best Japanese philosophies to enhance your learning. And we couldn't start with a different philosophy. Shoshin is the foundation of everything. Shoshin means beginner's mind. And it sounds silly, I know, like okay, so I have to pretend I'm dumb? No, it's exactly the opposite. Shoshin is the art of emptying the mind of preconceived certainties, emptying the ego, that thought that says, I already know this. You know when you're learning something new and you keep thinking, this is similar to what I already know, and then you skip steps, ignore details, and in the end, you realize you didn't learn it properly. This is the opposite of Shoshin. The samurai believed that the greatest barrier to learning is not ignorance, but the illusion of knowledge. Let me give you an example. 16th century feudal Japan. A young warrior arrives at the dojo of a highly respected samurai master. The guy had been training in fencing for 3 years. He had already won a few duels. He arrived confident. The master looked at him and said, "Forget everything you've learned. You know nothing." The young man was offended. "What do you mean I don't know anything? I've already won 7 duels." The master replied, "You won despite your technique, not because of it. You fight with the arrogance of someone who thinks they already know, and that will kill you." And you know what the master did? He had the guy hold the sword as if it were the first time in his life. Basic posture, simple movements from scratch. The young warrior spent weeks doing just that, holding the sword, feeling the weight, understanding the balance. Did it seem like a waste of time? Yes, but 2 years later, he became one of that master's most lethal disciples. Why? Because he learned from Shoshin. Empty mind, no ego, no shortcuts. Now, translate that into your life. Do you want to learn programming? Don't skip the basics just because you already know how to use a computer. Do you want to learn to play guitar? Don't ignore proper posture just because you already know how to strum. Shoshin literally means accepting that at that moment you are a beginner. And beginners aren't ashamed to ask obvious questions. They aren't afraid to seem slow.
They don't skip fundamentals. Do you know what happens when you truly hug Shoshin? You learn faster because you're not relearning bad habits. You're not fighting your own ego. You're just absorbing. It's like formatting the hard drive before installing a new program. The installation runs much faster. Perhaps you're thinking, you said I would learn quickly, and now you're talking about a technique where I spend weeks learning the fundamentals. Exactly, because that's where most people go wrong. Many people thinking they've mastered a subject realize at a critical point that they didn't master anything at all, and end up wasting time having to review topics they should already have mastered. How many professionals do you know who seem to have even a basic understanding of their professions? Shoshin eliminates this evil at its root. And look, this isn't just some crazy Zen monk talking. There's science behind it. Neuroscience calls this optimized neuroplasticity. When you genuinely put yourself in learning mode without resistance, without thinking, I already know this, the brain creates stronger and faster neural connections. Dr. Carol Dweck, a psychologist at Stanford, has dedicated 30 years of her career to studying what she calls the growth mindset. And do you know what she discovered? People who believe they can always learn something new, who don't cling to what they already know, learn up to 40% faster than people with a fixed mindset.
Shoshin is not mysticism. It's neuroscience dressed up as samurai philosophy. But Shin alone is not enough, because there's a difference between being open to learning and knowing how to structure learning. And that's where the second principle comes in. Chapter 2. Shuhari, the progressive structure of learning. Shuhari, this is the map, the compass, the operating system of samurai learning. And it works like this. Shu, obey, copy, imitate perfectly. Ha, break, question, adapt. Ri, transcend, create, innovate. Does it seem simple? But most people make mistakes right at the first stage, and that's why it takes them years to learn what could take months. Let me explain each step to you. Shu, obey. This is the stage where you copy without questioning, without modifying, without thinking. But I prefer to do it this way. No, you find a master or a proven method and replicate exactly what that method does. The samurai took this seriously. When a young warrior entered a dojo, he would spend years simply imitating the master's movements, kata by kata. No variation, no creativity. Does it seem boring? Does it seem limiting? Exactly. And that's why it works. Because at the Shu stage, you don't know enough to improvise. Any adjustment you make will be based on ignorance, not wisdom. Imagine a baby learning to speak. The baby doesn't invent grammar. It just repeats, "Mummy, Daddy, water." The baby imitates sounds until the sounds become words. Words become sentences. Sentences become thoughts. This is the Shu phase, pure imitation. And you know what's crazy? Most people skip this phase because they want to put their personality into the process from the beginning. They want to do it their own way, and so they keep spinning their wheels for years, decades, without getting anywhere.
Now let's go to Ha break. Now you can start asking questions. After you've mastered the basics, and I mean really mastered them, not just sort of understood, then you can begin to ask questions. Ha is the stage where you take everything you've learned and start testing variations, adapting, asking, what if I do it this way? What if I change this? Samurai only entered this phase after years of training because they knew that to break the rules, you first need to understand them deeply. Think of Bruce Lee. He trained Wing Chun, a traditional style of Kung Fu, for years. He followed every rule, every kata, every movement exactly as the master instructed. Only after that did he begin to question, why do we always stay in this posture? Why not mix high kicks with low punches? Why not adapt this to the context of a street fight? And it was through questioning that he created Jeet Kune Do, a new style, but only because he mastered the old one first. This is the Ha phase. Finally, we move on to the Ri phase, to transcend. Ri is the stage where you no longer follow any system because you have become the system. You don't need to think. You don't need to remember the rules. You simply act. Musashi reached this point. He no longer fought following techniques. He fought like breathing, instinctive, fluid, perfect. But he only got there after years because he went through Shu and Ha first. Musashi admits in the Book of Five Rings that he realized his previous victories hadn't happened because he had mastered the path of strategy, and from then on he embarked on a journey to master and transcend all the techniques he had learned throughout his life. Do you know when Musashi admitted he had mastered the path of strategy? That 50 years old. At foot, he says, "So I started training morning and night to seek the deep principle. At 50, I naturally arrived at the path of strategy." Most people want to start in Ri. They want to be original, creative, unique from day one. And then they never get off the ground. Now, let's move on to the practical part. Do you want to learn graphic design? Shu. Copy designs you admire, pixel by pixel, color by color. Don't invent anything, just replicate. Ha! Start mixing styles, test variations. What if I use this font with that color palette? Ri. You develop your own style. People look at your work and say, "That's by that guy." You've transcended. Do you want to learn how to write? Shu. Copy the structure of writers you respect. Ha! Start mixing techniques. Try out narrative voice. Play with rhythm and tone. Ri. You write in a way that only you know how. But here's the secret nobody tells you. Most people never get to Ri. And that's okay, because even in Ha, breaking and adapting, you're already in the top 10% of any skill. The difference is that you didn't skip steps. You built the foundation, and now you can go far. But understand this, in the learning and copying phase, you're not supposed to plagiarize other people's work and sell it as your own. You're supposed to deeply understand how that person's technique works and create something new using their technique, so that from there you can begin to break through, recreate, and transcend. After going through all these stages, now it's time to master it completely, to become a true master. Chapter 3. Mushin. Automation and Mastery. Great, you have the right mindset, Shoshin. You have the right structure, Shuhari. But one thing is still missing, the last piece of the puzzle, Mushin. Mushin means no mind, or more precisely, mind without mind. I've already talked about this concept in other videos on the channel, but remember what I said in this same video.
Keep an open mind. Don't think you've mastered this concept just because you've heard about it before. Mushin is the state where you act without thinking, where the skill becomes so natural, so automatic, that conscious thought only gets in the way. You know when you're typing on a keyboard and you don't need to look at the keys? You don't think, now I'm going to press A, now S. Your fingers simply know where each key is. This is Mushin. You know when you're driving and suddenly realize you've arrived home, but you don't consciously remember every turn you took. Your body was driving on autopilot. This is Mushin. For the samurai, Mushin was the ultimate stage of mastery, the moment when the sword becomes an extension of the body, where you don't decide to attack or defend, you simply act. In this state, you are faster, more precise, more efficient. Why? Because conscious thought is slow. Let me explain to you what happens in the brain. When you're learning something new, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thought, is working at its peak. You need to think about every step, every movement, every decision. But as you practice, the brain begins to transfer these tasks to the cerebellum and basal ganglia, areas responsible for automatic movements. It's literally as if the brain was saying, "Okay, I understand this now. I don't need to spend any more conscious energy on it. I'll automate it." And when that happens, you enter Mushin. World-class musicians talk about it. Elite athletes talk about it. Surgeons, programmers, artists, they all describe the same phenomenon. That moment when you disappear, where you no longer exists doing the thing. The thing simply happens through you. The samurai called this effortless acting. Modern psychologists call it flow state. But the name doesn't matter.
What matters is that Mushin is real, and that's the ultimate goal of any learning process. But the problem is that you can't force yourself into the Mushin state. The more you try to get into a state of flow, the more trapped you become in your own head. Mushin isn't something you seek, it's something that happens after you've done all the work. Shoshin prepares you mentally, Shuhari gives you structure, and Mushin is the natural result of having taken the first two steps, right? Think of it this way. You don't decide to go into Mushin when you're playing guitar. You simply practice so much with the right mindset, following the right structure, that one day, in the middle of a song, you realize, wow, I'm not thinking. My fingers just know where to go. That is Mushin, and you only get there through conscious repetition that eventually becomes unconscious action. Samurai practiced katas, sequences of movements, thousands of times, not because they were stupid, but because they knew that repetition is what transforms conscious effort into unconscious mastery. And look, there's an important detail here. Mushin is not mental laziness. It's not switching off your brain. It's the opposite. It's the brain functioning so well that it seems like it's not functioning at all. It's maximum efficiency. And you know what's even crazier about these three principles? They weren't invented for learning fast. They were invented for something much more serious: survival.
Because in feudal Japan, if you didn't master the sword quickly enough, you died. Simple as that. There was no second chance. There was no, I'll try again tomorrow. Either you learned or you were destroyed. And it was this pressure, this life or death urgency, that forced the samurai to develop the most efficient learning system in human history. A system that today, 400 years later, we can use to master anything. Programming, music, languages, writing, design, entrepreneurship, anything. And the best part is that you don't need to be in a life or death battle to apply this. You just need to take it seriously. So let me summarize everything for you. If you want to master any skill frighteningly quickly, you need three things. 1. Shoshin, beginner's mind. Empty your ego, accept that you don't know, and then you absorb everything. 2. Shuhari, the structure. First copy, then adapt, and only then innovate.
3. Mushin, automation. Practice until the skill becomes instinctive, until you no longer need to think. This method is not a magic shortcut, it's a system, and systems work when you follow the steps. Samurai didn't become master swordsmen because they had supernatural talent. They became masters because they followed a process tested over generations. And now you know this process. Are you going to apply it? Or will you continue trying to learn on your own, skipping steps, wanting immediate results without structure? Because the truth is this: talent doesn't exist. What exists is method. And now you have the method. If you've watched this far, congratulations. That already shows you have more drive than many people. And if you want to learn more about how to learn, because this subject is too deep to fit into just one video, watch this video that's appearing on your screen now. In it, I delve into other learning techniques that will complement everything you've seen here. Thanks for watching until the end. That shows you take learning seriously. And remember, it's not about being the fastest, it's about being the most consistent. The samurai knew this, and now you know it too. Stay strong. Until the next video.